Jimmy Baxter, welcome
Yes.
to the Jacked Up Podcast with K-Rock.
Ah, all right.
How are you, my friend?
Excellent.
You
Very good.
are an award-winning, extraordinaire guitarist, unbelievable guitarist, man. You're one of the best lead guitarists I think I've ever seen in the
Holy
area.
mackerel. Wow. Well, thank you.
What do you play right now? What's your currently, what's your rig and what's your gear?
My gear. Oh my goodness. Well, as my wife knows, much to her chagrin probably, is I have a lot of amps. And so my rig is mostly a Marshall kind of sound. That's what I grew up hearing. So that's kind of what I hear in my head. So I have all these different kinds of Marshall amps that I like.
So what are you using on stage? Like when I come see you, what's up there?
Right now it's a modified Marshall. What I do is I look at the set list for the songs that we're playing for whatever band I'm in, and I say, okay, what amp and where do I want to be? What guitar? What amp? What do I, where do I want to sound? And so, depending on the set list, the songs will pretty much tell me what amp I should bring and what guitar I should use. That's basically
So we're going to talk about your history of guitar playing.
okay.
We're going to talk about all the bands you've been in. You're currently with a band, local band here called Blackthorn Rose.
Yes.
Great people. The Luthers, Mike and Roxanne are friends of mine,
Yeah.
and I get every chance that I get when I'm not playing myself, I'll try to go see my friends,
Hmm.
and I'm due to see you guys.
Ah.
And you guys pretty much play a lot of the same venues we do.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we're usually booked up the same nights because we try to come and see you guys.
You know, it's funny in the summertime, as our listeners know that this is a Sarasota, Florida show, and it gets very hot and humid here in the summer.
Oh yeah.
So what we do is we take off the last week of July,
Mhm.
all of August, and pretty much the first week of September every year. So
Oh
you're looking
yeah.
at like 6 weeks, maybe.
Right.
And it rains a lot. There's thunder and lightning.
Yep.
It's just we've learned the hard way that most of your gigs get canceled. And let's face it, a lot of our shows are outdoors out here.
Mhm.
So we learned the hard way. Like, you know what? Let's just take some time off. Larry, my guitar player, likes to travel up to his hometown, up to New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah.
And, other people like to do things in the summertime. In fact, I may even go out of town. I may go out to Montana.
Meet so many people here from the East Coast. I think I'm one of the few guys from the West Coast um, in the area. There's so many people. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, a lot of New Yorkers, and local Florida, born and bred local Florida boys.
As you know, there's a lot of musicians down here.
Yeah.
This I always consider it 3 counties. I say, Manatee County, Sarasota County, Charlotte County.
All right.
That's pretty much where Jacked Up does most of their work, and that's where most of my friends, live.
Hmm.
I got a few friends down in Collier and Lee counties, and obviously some up in Hillsborough and, Pinellas, but there's a lot of musicians, and especially in Charlotte County, like, Charlotte County loves rock and roll, and everyone that comes and sits in that chair, we talk about venues like Twisted Fork,
Hmm.
TT's,
Hmm.
Gators,
Hmm.
and there's just like a hunger for like rock, man, but like hard rock,
They like hard rock
like
down there.
classic hard rock is what I call it.
Yeah.
The stuff we grew up to, man, the Van Halen, the AC/DC, Motley Crue,
Judas
Metallica,
Priest.
Judas Priest,
Yeah, they like the harder stuff there.
because they want that edge, they want those 2 guitars.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, in your current band, you have 2 guitars, correct?
Hmm.
So how do you guys determine, like, who's gonna play the rhythm, who's gonna play the lead? Like, do you guys have a conversation about that?
Ralph is just considered being the rhythm guy. He doesn't like playing any leads, and he's limited in his ability to do so. So he'll pretty much tell me what his limitation is on a song. So if we're working on a song that's a traditional 2 guitar song, say it's Judas Priest, right? And both of the guitar players are fairly equal. Well, Ralph will say, "Oh, I could do this, kind of this point. And here's what I can do on it." So it's like, okay, well, so we'll work it out like that. Pretty much what his capabilities are.
So you guys will have a conversation, perhaps maybe it starts on the phone, and then maybe it'll go into the practice room?
It usually is in the practice room. Yeah.
Because a lot of times what happens is, in some bands, and this maybe is not a good thing, there's always that little tension between the guitar players.
Oh
So
yeah.
once the roles are determined that, hey, this is the alpha, and here's the other guy,
Yeah.
or here's the rhythm guy, here's the lead guy. And then, so, you know what happens too? Like a lot of times the rhythm guy will play a couple licks here and there, right?
Yeah.
And so you give, there's some of that too, right?
Yeah, well, Ralph doesn't really want to. That's the thing. He's a solid player. He's solid. He's a lot like Angus, not Angus, but his brother Malcolm Young. He's very solid, and
And
he's
that's important to
really
have that.
laying that rhythm
That's
down.
important to have that.
Exactly, and it makes my life a lot
So that's a
easier.
good thing then. So
Yeah,
actually, so that your situation is great because the rules have already been put at the table. So look,
right,
this is how it's going to be, man. I'm going to handle all the
right.
heavy leads, and you're going to handle the solid rhythm.
Yeah, there's no ego at all involved in it. It's pretty much just objectively, what does the song say? And
And you guys are a good band because the song selection that Blackthorn Rose has is great.
oh,
You have a good variety of rock and roll.
yeah, well, that's no thanks to me. I mean, I'm not really good at picking songs. That's really Ann and Mike and Ralph. They know the area and they know which songs to pick. So they're really good
And
at
they
it.
were established before you came into the band.
Right, exactly.
So they basically handed you a laundry list and say, learn these songs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. And that is pretty much the way it is. And I happen to be able to do them to an extent. When I first came to Sarasota, I was thinking, oh, we'll move down to Sarasota and I'll join some tiki bar band and wear a Hawaiian shirt and have a drink with an umbrella in it, and we'll play Jimmy Buffett songs. And it just didn't happen. Those gigs are taken up by people are already playing them. So they're not really available for somebody that doesn't know anybody. So if you land in Sarasota and think, hey, I'll join an already easy going tiki bar kind of band, it could be tough sledding.
Well, it is and it isn't. Here's my philosophy on that. Because you're an accomplished quality guitar player, you'll always find work because someone's always going to need a good lead guitar player. Now, do you sing?
I do, but people pay me not to sing.
Okay. So for you to do a single or a duo and to do those things that you were talking about, those tiki bars things, that's not really going to happen for you. That's not really in your future.
It could if I ended up being a second singer, not the lead singer, but
Because I've come to the realization that as a bass player, I mean, I could sing a little bit, but I'm only as good as my drummer and my guitarist. So,
mhm,
I mean, and I don't sing really lead. So I'm going to need to at least be in a 4-piece,
mhm.
maybe a 3-piece with a singing guitar player. But the good thing about, down here is that there's always a need for really quality guitar players, which I consider you to be.
Mm.
There's a lot of bands, if you go through Craigslist, Band Mix, they're always looking for a quality guitar player.
Ah,
Bass players, yeah, there's a lot of them out there, but there's not a lot that sing.
oh yeah, right.
There's a good amount of drummers out there of different levels.
Mhm.
Keyboard players are hard to find, you
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah. Those are
and
rare.
horn players are almost impossible, man. I'm looking for a sax guy right now, and it's very hard to find someone who is
Hmm.
available
Right.
because usually they're not available. Maybe they'll jam with you one night, but that's about it. I'm
Hmm.
looking for a full time guy.
Yeah, that is going to be really hard.
So I'm going to tell you about something that just happened Sunday night, man. So I went to see Metallica.
Mm.
What do you think of Metallica?
I have varied opinions of that because I saw them when they were just starting. I grew up 5 miles from Downey in La Mirada, California, and they weren't very good when they started. They were playing thrash, just really awful, and their musicianship wasn't very good when they first started going. So I was able to watch them. It's not my style and what I'm into, but I was able to watch them progress, and they just stuck at it and kept going year after year. Where they really showed up to me was when Master of the Puppets hit the local radio stations, and that got my attention.
Yeah. Do you suppose that what happens is that management takes them under their wing and maybe they put them in a room and maybe they bring in songwriters and maybe they help them with the lyrics and maybe they help them produce better quality sounding records?
You know what happens is even back then when Masters of the Puppets came out, their hardcore thrash fans were saying, you guys are selling out already. Because anytime a band that is local that they love that they're not popular, once you start gaining some popularity and you start really breaking through and coming out with
Like being on the radio?
yeah, some really good stuff, you get that tension.
Yeah.
So they got that pushback early, and they started getting, I think, Ride the Lightning. I'm not sure, which of their early releases where it was, but they really started to come into their own and realize what they did well and where their niche was.
Yeah.
So that was my thinking of that coming up. And when they came out with and Justice for All with one, that was just a natural
So,
progression
the,
there.
the highlight of the night was obviously they closed with Enter Sandman, which everybody went nuts.
Hmm.
And there was like seismic activity, with the land shaking. But before that, they did one,
Right.
and they did this incredible sequence of lights and flames and pyrotechnics and bombs. So it made how at the beginning of the record you're
Oh
like on a
yeah. Right.
battlefield.
Yeah.
They kind of reproduced that on stage,
Right.
and it was so freaking cool, man.
Right. Yeah. I saw YouTube clips of it. It from the stands. It just looks fantastic.
Well, let me tell the audience that doesn't have access to that. So Raymond James Stadium holds what 70,000 people. It's a football
It's
stadium.
huge.
Okay. So what they did, like ACDC, about a month ago, they would like most bands would just close down one of the end zones, so there were no seats behind. They were
Hmm.
blacked out, and then put a traditional stage with a giant screen right in the middle and maybe some two screens on the sides. So you're sitting there, everybody's looking at that particular end zone and they're watching a concert. That's most 99% of the time, that's how they do it.
Hmm.
But this was a stage in the round. So what they did was the stage was basically on the 50-yard line and surrounding. So they had different mosh pits. They had a mosh pit in the middle, and they had
Right.
mosh pits on the corners. And then there were still people that were on the field, but they were away from the mosh pit.
Mhm.
Then you had all the people in the stands on different levels. And then they put these 7 towers up, long poles,
Yeah.
and then these towers were screens, but they were multi-sided screens.
Right.
So they were able to flash images, so you could see Kirk over in this one, you could see Lars in that one. So whether you're right in front of the stage and you look up, or you're in the way nosebleeds, everything was cool, man, because you could
Right.
see it.
Yeah. I picked that up. It was the most unique thing I've seen. And imagine how much that must cost. That's got to be,
Yeah, they had a dozen 18-wheelers out there in the parking
oh
lot.
my goodness. Yeah.
Because you know what it is? I mean, I think Tampa was the only city where they did 2 shows.
Hmm.
All these other major cities, they just did the 1 show. So they did a no repeat. So what they did, and I spoke to somebody next to me that went to Friday,
Hmm.
and they went with obviously Sunday when I was there. So she said, yeah, they didn't play one song from Friday on Sunday. Like they had enough of a catalog,
Oh
but
my
they
God.
saved most of their hits for Sunday.
Mm,
So the people that went Friday, they were like, oh, you didn't play a lot of the things I came to hear.
mm.
But then Sunday, they were pleasantly surprised that they played all the great stuff. So I was just so impressed, Jimmy. I mean, like I am a Metallica fan now. Like I went and I downloaded a bunch of stuff, and now I'm trying to see if I can incorporate any Metallica at all in Jacked Up's music. The answer is no. Not going to work. But I'm just having this
Yeah.
fantasy now that
Mm.
I want to be James Hatfield,
Yeah.
and I'm going to shave my beard,
Right.
and I'm going to create like this, handlebar thing,
Right.
and then I'm going to like pretty much grow my sideburns, right?
Yeah. Right. I don't know if it fits your guys' vibe. We do Whom the Bell Tolls, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and we do Enter Sandman. The two that are really, I think, pretty popular. And again, that's a pick by Anna Mike
Yeah,
and
I mean, look,
Ralph.
cover bands, and for us to make money and to stay booked,
Mm-hmm.
we have to play songs that the audience loves.
Yep.
And even though everybody picks, the same songs from the same bands,
Mm-hmm.
it works because when someone's having a few drinks, they want to hear Metallica, they want to hear Enter Sandman.
Yeah.
If they want to hear Sweet Emotion.
Right.
There are certain bands that like they got to hear, like Guns N' Roses. We
Right.
always do Sweet Child because everybody wants to hear it, and we
Mm-hmm.
still get a huge applause.
Right.
I mean, Paradise City would be cool. Welcome to the Jungle would be cool.
Right.
Mr. Brownstone, but that's what they want to hear, the popular ones.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you sometimes feel like you're just selling out as a cover band, or like, do you realize it's a business and you're playing this because this is what they want to hear?
Oh, absolutely. For me, I think everyone has their line all over the place. I think that we're there for the people that are coming. We're there to entertain them. We're entertainment. So we're visual as well as audio. So we have somewhat of a job to do to, not just stand there and reproduce a song. We have to be some type of spectacle to an extent. That's what I think.
And I think the biggest challenge for your band is because you guys do play hard and you're loud. Some of these venues, it's very tough. And we have the problem too, man, to get your sound right.
Yeah.
Because in order to be effective on certain songs
Yeah.
with a certain feel, you have to have some power behind you.
Yeah.
So like we'll switch over to inner ears in certain venues and get amps off the stage.
Hmm.
What do you guys do to like accommodate different rooms?
We try to keep, we have a fairly low stage volume. The drums are the loudest in any room that we have. So I set my amp to where I can hear it just with the drums. It's not overpowering the drums, but it's under the drums, but I can still monitor it. And I work closely with the sound guy. And the sound guy has a lot of power. I think that would be an interesting discussion there too. That over for the overall sound of the band, right?
I actually invited a very popular sound guy to come on the show.
That
He hasn't gotten back to me yet, but that would be an interesting interview.
Yeah, you have James from 22N. He is fantastic.
Eric
Sean,
Ossipow.
Eric.
You know who
Okay,
that
I've heard of him, but I don't think we've
one of
ever
the
worked
best
with him.
that I've ever seen.
Yeah, good.
He works exclusively with Hollow Point, what used to be Leadfoot Gray.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Occasionally he'll work with The Verge, but they only play like once or twice a year because of the drummer, the same drummer.
Hmm.
But you know, look, it's all about, like you said earlier, entertainment.
Right.
So if you keep the stage volume low, whoever's working your front of the house can do a proper mix.
Hmm.
Ultimately, the people are going to be happy. Now, sometimes we play what I call menu venues, meaning that, like, let's say we're 6 to 10 or 7 to 11. Well, that first hour,
Right.
people are ordering food.
Yep.
So therefore, there needs to be a dialogue between server and customer and customer and server.
Yeah.
We've
Right.
gotten yelled at.
Yeah.
Servers couldn't hear their customers and vice versa.
Right.
So we go out of our way in the first set to play more of our mellow, quieter stuff,
Hmm.
knowing that people are going to get their food orders in,
Yeah.
and then we take our break, and then we come back, and then it's like, let's get crazy.
Yeah. We were at Gilligan's on Siesta Key there, and same thing. We're playing the first set, and the waitress and the manager come over and, can you keep it down? Where some of the people are wanting to move, and they want to order food. So we have to constantly keep in mind that they're a business, and so they've got to be able to operate. So it's kind of that dance, right? That balance between entertaining but doing it in a tactful way to where you're impactful but not distracting.
Well, I agree 100%, dude. And here's my take on that. When a venue hires a band, they need to realize that they're hiring a band for a reason,
Hmm.
because people are going to want to come and hear the music and ultimately dance and maybe spend more money, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they figure, all right, we're going to put X amount of dollars towards a live band, knowing that it's going to attract more people and we'll make money. Now,
Hmm.
I've had people say to us, "Oh man, you guys look loud," before we even
Oh, I know. They see
right,
you loading in,
right.
and they're already
So
biting
I'm
their
saying to myself, well, then
fingernails.
why did you hire us? Like, if you want jacked up and you want, because I bring in a big rig, like I have all QSC powered stuff. I got more stuff. A lot of people don't realize this. I have an entire freaking locker full of stuff that I can't even use
Hmm.
because either A, I can't fit it into venues, or B, we don't have the manpower.
Hmm.
So
Right.
we try to just bring what we can to be, but I hate it when people tell me to turn it down when I know that I'm not loud. If I'm loud, I'm loud. Like, I'll admit I'm loud. Like, we came out of the gate
Yeah.
one time hot and we were loud and we knew this. So we were like, yeah, okay, we made a mistake and we fixed it. But there are times when I know for a fact, man, dude, we're not loud at all. And why are you saying we're loud? Like, it's
We try to gauge it with a dB meter and walk around and keep it about 100 at the spike. But later on in the evening, when you feel that you can move out a bit, it can get a little bit louder, but we try to keep it under there so that you're still able to have a conversation without yelling, but at the same time, you're still getting that live music vibe.
right.
That's what I mean again by that real careful balance and that dance that you have to do.
But I tell you, man, look, I love a Gibson Les Paul going into a Marshall stack. That to me is heaven.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, right.
But you can't do that at certain tiki bars.
No. I grew up with that. I grew up, in that era with 100-watt Marshalls cranked. Stand in front of it and your pants leg are blowing, literally blowing from the speakers, moving back and
So
forth.
let's go back in time. Let's talk about your childhood. Let's talk about young Jimmy.
Mhm.
What were you listening to, man? Like, were you like into like the FM radio stuff? Did you inherit records from your older siblings? Like, what were you? What was
All the above. Yeah. Yeah. Music wasn't really encouraged in my family, but my older sister liked music, and she liked it. One day this was the life changer for me. She came home and back then in the 1960s, the olden days, she brought, I was a kid and she brought home 245 records,
I
the
remember
little
45s.
45s.
Yeah, sure.
Santana was Evil Ways. And on the other side was Samba Pati, which is a guitar solo by Carlos Santana. And that was it for me.
And how old were you again?
I was 8 or 9.
So you got bit by the bug at that young age.
Oh yeah, I was done. And here's the one that really put me into that. The other 45 she had was Jimi Hendrix, Foxy Lady and Purple Haze.
Wow,
and
that's a good one too.
I still am. My probably my two largest influences are Jimi Hendrix and Santana.
So you basically knew you wanted to be a guitar player from a young age.
I loved it. I started out like a lot of guitar players. I started out playing the broom, because we couldn't afford a guitar, and I didn't grow up in a music family, so I was always playing the broom to the album playing or the record playing. So when I actually could get a hold of a guitar and just played it, I just fell in love with the resonance of it and the sound of it. So.
And do you feel that you had the aptitude, like you were like at a good state of mind, and maybe physically you were in a good place to learn it, because maybe some kids might have not had the coordination that you had at the same age?
There is that, but I think it comes from the heart and it comes from the desire. Because if you don't have that spark, and you'll hear that from just about any professional musician, that if you don't have that spiritual spark, it's not going to come out here. If it doesn't come here, and to hear, and you don't see it and feel it on that spiritual level, it isn't going to translate to here.
I agree.
You can put a metronome all day long and you can practice scales, but if you're not inspired to move that string in a certain way and to bend it and
it becomes a part of your personality, it becomes a part of your soul.
You have to get out. You have to play.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I grew up, and I got bit by that.
So as an artist would paint a canvas, your art was creating notes on a guitar, playing notes and creating sounds.
Absolutely. You know what I think it is too is I wanted to use that to make people feel how I felt. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, you want to pass it on. It's like, oh, when I hear this music, it makes me just feel so wonderful. So I want to have that power to play music to make. You see what I'm saying? Other people feel wonderful.
All right, so I'm going to throw some bands.
Like a conduit.
Cool. I'm going to throw some bands out at you. Just tell me a word or two. So Rolling Stones.
Like them. When we were starting off, me and my best friend, and we were playing together, we were doing backyard parties, and it was just guitar and drums. And when we were junior high school. And so in California, backyard parties were huge. I don't know if they were that huge in New York.
Well, no, but I know, like learning about Van Halen and all those guys, that they were doing a lot of parties.
We all did it.
Because nobody wanted to go to the bars. Maybe they were hard to get into a bar, so you just drank in someone's backyard.
Yeah, bars where we grew up were the music scene really kind of wasn't happening there. It was happening in backyard parties, and so you'd set up and we would be jamming and playing. And so some of the earliest songs we played, Brown Sugar.
The easy ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Cream.
The ones that we could use. Because when I first started, my drummer friend, his uncle taught me bar chords, right? He says, oh, see, this unlock everything. And so once I learned upper and lower bar chords, I began to say, well, I can learn a lot of songs. And started, just with this simple information, I could learn how to play a lot of Rolling Stones songs and Black Sabbath songs. I just kind of saw it, and I was able to pick it up by ear.
What's funny? I was born in '65, and I was the youngest of 4, so there was always music in my mother's house, right? But I would say, like, my early influences were the easy listening stuff, like the Elton John, Beatles, Beach Boys. It wasn't until later in life that I really came into the Stones. Because I came to the Stones late. And I fell in love with the Stones, and then I went backwards, and I went back to the early stuff, and then because I went through a blues period.
Okay.
I was in a blues rock band. But all right, so here's another band, Led Zeppelin.
Oh yeah, I mean, huge.
The first time you heard Zeppelin, like
yeah.
what was it 1, 2, or 3, or 4? What was the first one?
It was one. One of the first parties that I played, the first party I played with my buddy, we did Dazed and Confused. and we train wrecked it. And it was the first boo, my face turned beet red. It's like, oh no. Oh. And they go, oh, we're just kidding. Keep going, man. You guys are just keep going. You're great. So we did. So I got that over with, because you're afraid to be playing in front of people. So, you're kind of shaking and dun, 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 trying to play it and all nervous. And so, yeah, Led Zeppelin, Dazed and Confused, the first song played out in front of people.
I got turned on to 2 first, which is an epic album. Every song is a masterpiece. And then from 2, I went to 4. It was weird. And then I went to 1. I didn't go to 3 till much later because to me 3 wasn't like commercially popular at the time.
Right.
But like Heartbreaker and Whole Lot of Love,
Mm-hmm.
man, those songs were on the radio. And
right.
like I would go over friends' house and they would be playing it.
Yeah.
And then 1, the great thing about 1 was it had a lot more blues to it. Your
Yeah.
time is going to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it had, oh gosh, what is that?
Communication breakdowns on there.
Right. But it also had, bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
Da-da-da.
Since I've been loving you, is that,
Yeah.
or is that
No, Since I've Been Loving You's on 3, but I don't think that's
we're gonna have to brush up and do our Led Zeppelin homework.
Yeah.
There's just so many songs, man. I mean, like my favorite song on 2 is Ramble On. I also like Thank You and the Lennon song. So all my favorite songs are on the second album. But then you get into Physical Graffiti, and that's a game changer because the sound there is very dynamic. There's a lot of different sounds on that record.
Yeah, we were just listening to that, my wife and I, just 2 nights ago. And I was mentioning to her, you can hear the disco influence, because we're talking mid-70s now. And you can hear the rhythms, talking about love, the rhythm and everything kind of changed. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, and he's playing. So you get this more danceable rock kind of thing going. They really stretched out. And that's one thing I really loved and respected about Led Zeppelin is they weren't afraid to reinvent themselves. When they were inspired, they just went. They didn't allow themselves to be cornered or restricted.
You know what I think the greatest thing about that band was their management, because I think the management had a huge ego, and
Peter Grant.
It kind of trickled down, and like we're only going to play the biggest arenas, we're only going to make the most amount of money. We're going to have our own plane, they just created this empire.
Yeah,
like the mighty Led Zeppelin.
Right.
I'm saying they were so different than any other band.
Well, they were very careful with that mystique, and Led Zeppelin. Van Halen later tried to borrow from that we want to keep in the background. We want people to guess. We don't want to be so much out there. So we want it hard for people to know what we're doing.
During Led Zeppelin's run, you basically had to buy the record, right? Or maybe even like the 8-track, I guess, whatever.
Right.
My brother had his 8-tracks. And then you had to wait for them to come to your town, and you would stand online at Ticketron or Ticketmaster, buy your ticket.
Right.
Remember, they used to come out in the dot matrix printers. And then you would go to a concert. There was no MTV, right? There was
no.
I mean, maybe there was Don Kirshner's rock concert, and there might have been like American Bandstand. So there was some TV that maybe you can catch a glimpse of these guys in the 70s. But for the most part, you were going to the show. Now, I'm glad you mentioned Van Halen because you're a California guy. To me, Van Halen was my number 1 band growing up. I mean, I was so into Van Halen, it was insane, and I still am. I mean, I saw there's a tribute band that comes around town called Completely Unchained. If you haven't seen them, they're really good.
Yeah, I've seen short clips from them, and they are really good.
So I was a big David Lee Roth fan. We all wanted to be David Lee Roth. Beautiful women. Plenty of whiskey and party materials.
He was taken from Jim Dandy, right?
Yeah.
Black Oak, Arkansas.
Many years later, you learn about all this.
Yeah, right.
But at the time, he was this blonde guy,
right?
And he was like cool, and he was always gonna bang your girlfriend if you were rude to him, he would like, shut up, I'll bang your girlfriend.
That's what you call cock rock. It was all that.
So then he was doing his thing, and now he could have been in his own band. And then you had Eddie, who was just like this freak, right?
Yeah.
And then Michael Anthony, who gets no respect, man. I mean, he was one of the best if not the best singing bass player, because all those screeches, man, all those harmonies was him.
Yeah. Well, he was lead singer in his band. I think they were called Snake. So when they brought him over, he was already a lead singer. And so he kind of didn't want to do singing, but when he started singing the backups, realizing there needs to be a higher, it was magic. Because
Total
Eddie's
magic.
kind of doing the lower, and David Lee Roth somewhat in the middle, and then you have Michael Anthony up there on the top.
You know what's funny, man? And when you listen to Van Halen, especially the early stuff, there's a lot of those guys are doing a lot of harmonies and a lot of backups.
Yeah.
More so than any other bands that around that time.
Well, yeah.
Like they were like the Dick Clark Five. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
they were enjoying it.
Right. When their album came out, I remember listening and going, Eddie's guitar playing. It's like, oh my gosh, shoot me now. Man, whoa, what, that is just his tone and his sound is so off the hook, and his right hand and his fiery playing is just so great. But when they started singing, it's like, oh man,
Right,
now
the whole package.
now they're killing me on a band level.
And then,
it's not just the individual guitar player, but the whole band, is got it going on.
Last but not least, Alex Van Halen's drumming was so unique.
I thought it was really good.
Very unique sound, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great, great, great drummer. And, his brother always gets top billing, but Alex Van Halen's drumming made that band. I mean, that band sounded unique, not just because of Eddie and Dave, but because the drums, man.
Well, yeah. I think he said he was
the way he tuned his drums, man, the way he played them.
He was a Ginger Baker freak, I think he said. So he was really into Ginger Baker from Cream.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's a very different kind of drummer. His background, I think, is jazz and fusion. So, yeah.
So the very first album came out, Van Halen wanted blew people away.
Yeah.
Right? Running with the Devil, Eruption, You Really Got Me, right? Just blew people away. Then they followed it up with 2.
Including me.
Yeah. No, then they followed up with 2.
Yeah.
Which 2 doesn't get, people don't really talk much about 2. I think the big radio hit from 2 was,
Beautiful Girls.
Well, Beautiful Girls, there was a Dance the Night Away.
Dance the Night Away, right, yep.
Right? And he tells a story about why he sang that song, Dance the Night Away, because they were performing in clubs that had like...
Yeah, Gazzari's.
Right.
Gazzari's, right, was all about dance.
And then the third album came out, which was incredible. Women and Children First.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, what was that? Take Your Whiskey Home.
Yeah, yeah.
Simple Rhyme.
Fools.
Could This Be Magic?
Yeah.
Oh, great stuff.
Yeah.
And then the fourth album was it Fair Warning?
Yeah.
That's when they just went to a whole nother level, dude. With Mean Streets.
Yeah.
Unchained.
Yeah. I still think, and this is controversial, but I'm controversial. I think Eddie peaked in 1978. And when you look, they're just coming on now, and you can go on YouTube and look at, they're releasing a lot of video from 1978 concerts, just absolutely on fire. And that's the way it was. That's the environment when we were playing out.
Do you think that's a great statement you made? I'm glad you made that statement because you were there at the time.
Yes.
Do you think other guys caught up to Eddie? Like, for an example, was he doing? He was tapping. He may not have invented tapping. Maybe people think he invented tapping.
Oh yeah.
But he was the first guy to do it. Probably really good.
Yeah, he his tapping wasn't what I thought was his strength. His right hand is incredible, meaning his picking hand. Even now, my gauge is can I pick gosh, what's that song? Not On Fire, but dun 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 dun.
Jamie's crying?
No. No, it's oh man, blank. But anyway, from the is the fast.
I think that's On Fire.
No, it's not On Fire. It's look at all these kids. I'm the one.
I'm the
one you love. Come on, baby, show your love. Wow, give it to me. Yeah, dun 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 dun. That right hand riff. Now, back when I was 17 and 18, back then, right, I could play that at speed. And my right hand, that's the gauge. And I was telling my wife, I got to get my right hand back going. It still isn't. I still, since not playing this kind of music for so many years, I can't bring my right hand back up to that. It's close, but that's one of the gauges I use.
Yeah. Well,
his right hand is
that like, because we're all getting older and maybe
oh yeah,
we're all slowing down?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What about Randy Rhoads? What do you think of Randy?
Randy is great. I met Randy. Randy, his the thing that I didn't like about Randy was his band, Quiet Riot. They were a lollipop band. They were like Bay City Rollers. Are you familiar with Bay
Sure,
City
of
Rollers?
course.
You know, one of those, get some kicks. Come on, everybody, and get your kicks. That's what Quiet Riot was playing. And here's Randy, this unbelievable, fantastic guitar player, but he's got the polka dot, vest on and the bow tie.
He's playing along with
He's
that.
playing his
Yeah.
Les Paul down by his knees, and the guy's playing it like.
So they had a gimmick that,
But yeah, but he was going for this lollipop stuff. And when I heard that when he joined up with Ozzy, it was just kind of, that's odd. What is that going to sound like? But yeah, a lot of people were talking about Randy, but he was so much more different at that time than Eddie. His style with Quiet Riot. And here's another thing. I picked it up because I've seen Randy with Quiet Riot a few times. Crazy Train, the dun 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 dun. He had a guitar solo. In the middle of his guitar solo, he would play that riff, and he played parts of "Goodbye to Romance." He would go into that kind of as like a little classical thing he would do in the middle of his guitar solo when he was still with Quiet Riot. So a lot of what he had kind of in the bag, he brought out and used when he joined Ozzy. And he became something else when he joined Ozzy. It was just, I was just so proud
Do you think that sometimes
of
maybe
him.
when an album gets produced, there's different producers, like there's
Mhm.
certain guys like, Bob, was it Bob Rock?
Yeah.
And certain other guys like, that go in and take a band and really manipulate their sound and maybe like help them for the better. And do you think that maybe like certain records that we grew up loving, it wouldn't have been as good if it wasn't for that producer? Like
Yeah.
Jeff Mutt Lange did a lot of cool stuff like Def Leppard,
Yeah. Did you hear that story where Def Leppard, they were fighting him with the vocals? And he said, well, here's your vocals the way you want them. What's the singer for Def Leppard is, you remember that guy's name?
I don't.
uh,
Joe
Yeah,
Elliott?
Joe Elliott. I think that's it. And so he goes, go to dinner and come back. They come to, and he goes, here's yours. Here's my version. And it's what's on Photograph, And they go, okay, yeah, you win. And ever since then, he's the one.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying the guy a lot of money to produce you, so you have to assume that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, but my point is, you got to really, when you're working with a producer, you're in the studio for hours, and you guys have to have a chemistry,
Right.
and you got to kind of buy in, and
Sure.
you got to sell on things. I know he worked a lot with Metallica on the Black Album, and
The Black Album is phenomenal.
he
Oh
moved
my
them
God.
into that range,
Oh my God.
and just said, guys, this ain't good enough. And
I mean,
so
look-
he pushed him. He got the whip out. He was cracking the whip on those guys.
So I'm glad you brought this up because I think that certain bands have surprise records. Like I think Kiss with Destroyer. That was a
Mhm.
different sound for them. It was like, holy shit. Like, they got real serious, man. Right? With the quality of the production.
It was
putting
a
strings-
definite step
Putting
up. Right.
strings on some of the songs.
Right.
In the background and all that shit,
Well, now they had their live album and they had more visibility and people, so they have more popularity.
And
They had a
then-
little bit more pull with the record label.
Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood. That album was produced well. That took them to the next level.
Hmm.
Right? Aerosmith always had good stuff, but I think Aerosmith is an interesting band because they were really, really, really popular. Then they kind of fell apart. Then they got
Mhm.
popular again and they were bigger than ever because when they became back in the second time, MTV just came out.
Well, that was after that rap guy. Gosh, I can't remember.
Run DMC?
Yeah, when he used them, when he
Yeah, and no, that video was
walk
brilliant.
this way. Yeah, he brought
That
him back.
video
So
was brilliant, but MTV
that's what helped him launch again.
MTV
right?
helped revitalize their career. Man,
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
Because Janie's Got a Gun,
Right.
Love in an Elevator.
Yeah, they came out and they really reinvented themselves, and it worked.
Make a joke and I'm silent.
So now we're going to talk about a different kind of genre because now we're talking about like the Seattle scene, right?
Mhm.
So what were your thoughts on all that stuff when like Pearl Jam popped up, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden?
But I think there's a couple of camps there that grunge. You have more of the rock grunge. I always looked at Pearl Jam's first album as it comes off to me like 70s hard rock. It's driving. It guitar players using a Marshall wah wah pedal. It's just good hard driving rock to me. But then later on, they started getting more, kind of art driven Pearl Jam, less driving rock. So Alice in Chains was heavier. Alice in Chains tilted more to me to be more of the same kind of idea from a Black Sabbath. Um,
But they had great vocals, man.
oh,
They were known for like,
Staley is my favorite
yeah,
vocalist of
yeah.
that era. That guy's just magic. Um, yeah, he was in that Mad Season, Above. If anyone doesn't know about Mad Season and the album called Above, get it. That to me is
What were your thoughts on Nirvana?
fantastic. I kind of I wasn't a hater, but I wasn't a real fan.
I know a lot of fans that say that that acoustic unplugged album, that's like their Bible. They think that's the greatest record ever made known to mankind.
Oh wow,
You know, there are people that love that stuff.
it's good songwriting. He was really good at coming at hooks. What I really liked about Kurt Cobain is his use of dynamics, right?
Yes.
Dun, dun,
Right.
For manic to
Yeah, good point.
barely
Good
off.
point.
So he was able to bring you along on these big rises and drops.
So one of my favorite bands to this day came out of that whole thing. It's Foo Fighters
Oh yeah,
because Dave Grohl, fabulous drummer, started playing guitar,
and writing songs.
writing songs with great hooks,
Right.
writing songs that would fill up arenas and stadiums that people can dance to and jump up to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like the guy hit a home run, and there's no doubt.
Nobody could say that he's riding off of, well, I guess you can say that he's riding off the coattails of Nirvana, but he's got his own talent that's off the hook. I think it
but you know what?
surpasses.
Because he's not drumming with Foo Fighters and because he's writing,
Mhm.
he gets a pass. So he's not living off of Kurt's name.
Right.
If he was still a drummer and they were still playing Nirvana songs, yeah, that's a whole different story. But you know what's funny? Nirvana could never really truly get back together because obviously Kurt's death.
Right.
But wouldn't it be cool? I think they did it one night. They had like the bass player Chris Novoselic, Dave, and they had the second guitar player Chris Smears. What's the guy that?
Oh,
What's the other guy?
I don't know his name, but he's the friend of the
I forgot
band
his
that they
name.
had.
But then they had a different girl, females, come in and sing Kurt's parts, and they filmed it, and it was like a tribute to Nirvana.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty like Joan Jett helped out and sang a song, and
All
then
right.
like Lourdes came and sang something. But yeah, I mean that was just great. That Nevermind album is always going to go down as one of the greatest ever made.
Yeah, that really tough to try to cover it. When I see cover bands try to do Nirvana, it's hard.
Yeah, we do Smells Like Teen Spirit, and we always do it end of the night, and we only save it for venues where like Gator Club, where you know it's late, and there's a lot of drunk kids because
Mhm.
they all jump up and down in unison.
Oh yeah, okay.
But we wouldn't play that like at Clancy's in front of a bunch of 70-year-old people, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That
So let's get more into like your bands, okay? So
Mhm.
like tell us about your first band, you know, tell us about like how that whole progression came, all the bands you were in. I know it could be a long story, but just like in a Reader's Digest version,
it could
take us
be.
through
Well,
your
really quick.
your history.
Really quick. When I decided early on that I wanted to be a rock star, it's like I want to go all in. I'm pretty OCD and ADD. All focus. So I started practicing a lot and progressing a lot. And this is when I started, meeting people and uh, that were in and hanging out with people in other bands that were above ours. But I started when I found out that Eddie practices all day, then I had to do that. It's like, that's what you have to do to make it. Were you willing to do what it takes to make it, Sonny boy? It's like, well, yeah. What do I got to do? So I started getting up early and going and practicing. So my day for almost a couple of years was 16 hours a day practice guitar, solid. And that would include 4 hours every night. Our band practiced 4 hours every night. And
So you're talking
we
about
were
this is
really good.
This is your first band you're talking about now.
No, they're right. Our first band
Okay.
was called Arch Rival.
And it was 100% covers.
Yeah. And then
And
we
with-
were doing what everyone else does though. See, what you do is you start out with covers and then you sneak in a song that you write yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's, you know how you know it works is you sneak it in there and then later on you wait and you people, hey, what was that song, after you guys played Train Kept a Rollin'? That song, who was that? She says it's Aerosmith, but I'm saying it's, the Stone. And it's like, no, that's our song. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that song's great.
That's cool.
Yeah. So when you start getting that feedback, you know that we're on the right track, right? So, and that's what was happening. So we were sneaking in, a couple. We were at 2 working on a third, and my buddy, he melted down. That happens to bands, he started believing he was a rock star before he was a rock star.
Yeah. And then maybe drugs and alcohol can damage someone's brain.
I love the man to death. I honestly do. But he started showing up to rehearsal wearing a fur coat and 2 girls. They brought him to rehearsal in a limousine, and I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah.
And instead of learning the song, he's
Right.
back there, he's drumming, and I look back, and one of the girls is tipping the beer into his mouth while he's playing the drums. And it's like,
That's why it's fun.
Oh,
It's fun seeing
no.
bands that like were very humble in the beginning and had nothing, and then like Metallica could be a great example. They've been around for what 40 years,
Yeah.
so now they're all millionaires. But
Right.
But they paid their dues, man.
Yeah.
They went in and out of rehab. Unfortunately, they lost some band members, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So now like they're royalty
Or their
now
bass
because
player.
of what they had to go through.
Yeah.
You're talking about maybe a flash in a pan type of thing. Like you got to pay your dues, man.
I know. I was trying to tell my buddy we're not there yet. Just but this is the human thing. Looking back, I think he got what he wanted out of the band.
The adulation.
Yeah, all he wanted was
he
a
wanted to be
couple of
famous.
girls to pick him up in a limousine,
He
and
wanted to be locally famous.
and he was good. He's
Yeah.
like, Jim, I don't need to work any hard. I'm already getting what I want, kind of thing. And I'm thinking, oh, wait, we're.
That reminds me of the Motley Crue movie.
Yeah.
Remember Vince Neil was already like an established singer, and they went to go hire him to come to Motley Crue, and he's like, I already got my own band, I already got my chicks, I already got like everything I need. He had a lot of rich girlfriends.
Oh yeah, I didn't see the movie.
Yeah, it's
but-
pretty cool. It's like The Dirt. It's called The Dirt,
okay, yeah,
based on the book.
okay,
So they convinced him to join their band,
right.
and then the band took off because he could back then he was a really good singer.
Yeah. And that's where we're just right there. I ended up going to another band, and I had Araya area, whatever you want to call it, Japanese guitars. They wanted to sponsor me.
So this is all in California.
Mhm.
And how old are you during all this?
Right then I think I was 20.
So you're a
21.
young guy and you're getting offers to sponsor guitars. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when Aria came, there was a band called American Heroes, Lanny Cordola, who ended up in a band called House of Lords. I took his spot. And so their singer left. We couldn't get another singer. Aria Guitars shows up, and they're going to make a Jim Baxter model guitar. Well, the next day, the next guy they saw the very next day was a guy that just landed from Sweden. It's got Yngwie Malmsteen. And they told me, we're going to go see this Yngwie. I go, I know, I've heard of him. I got to go see him. Everyone's talking about him. And he ended up with a deal, and I didn't.
Of
I ended up.
course. Yeah. That's too bad. You probably met a lot of really successful guys, man.
Yeah.
Did you know that Vinny, that guy from White Lion, Vinny, what's his name, Bravia or something?
No. Was he on the West Coast back then?
Yeah. What happened was I lived in Los Angeles in 1990.
Okay. Yeah. This is after.
Before
Yeah, way before then. Yeah.
Oh, before then.
Yeah.
Well, when I lived there in 1990, I used to walk up and down Sunset Strip just to watch and go to bars.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see all the musicians, and I would see a lot of people. They were still wearing a lot of hair and makeup, and there was still a lot of that,
Yeah.
like the Poisons and those kind of guys.
Right.
And now Motley Crue had already made it,
Mhm.
but there were a lot of bands that were trying to make it. So like they were trying to get into Gazzari's, and they were trying to get into all those clubs so they can play.
Yeah.
And there were kids selling tickets on the street because I guess the premise was that you have to sell your tickets in advance
Yeah.
and bring the money to the promoter before you could play.
That's what it became. We played when they actually paid you. We had management. Our band had management. They were Puck Enterprises. We had record label guys coming. That's one of the reasons why I left the business. I was so distraught.
Now, why was that? Like, can you explain a little bit about that? Like was it the pressure was just too much? Was it too much work?
Well, when
Was it too
you're
much bullshit?
yeah, when you're a kid, you think that, it's the same thing I think happens to people that want to come to Hollywood and be an actress. And when you see the people that actually the Weinsteins and that actually have the power and what they do, it's very I was very
They treat
naive.
people shitty.
Yeah, they treat you
It's like it's almost like you're like a worker bee and you exist to
oh, they
please them.
exploit you, and
Yeah.
you can see it. They would show up and they'd be hitting on our girlfriends. They show up in limousine, the record label guys that were hanging out, and they would tell you everything.
Well, was Guns N' Roses
They
already out
promise
at this
you
point?
everything. No, this
So they
is
had
before
okay.
GNR.
So were people looking at you and your band
Yeah,
with dollar signs in their eyes? Of like, how
absolutely.
can these guys make us money?
That's all they care
So
about.
they were digging your sound.
Yeah. What they really like is it's already proven. See, it's a machine. You got to understand back then it's kind of like, man, how do I explain it? It's like high school football and then you go to college and then you go to the pros, right?
What was the name of this band that you're talking about right now at this point?
That I was in? We were called Arch Rival.
So right now, Arch Rival, people are checking you guys out.
Oh
saying,
yeah. And we drew a lot. So way they look at it is if you're really good, and this happened to both Quiet Riot and to Van Halen. They were fantastic bands, but they didn't draw a lot when they played certain places. We drew a lot,
Right,
so
that's
we
important.
showed up pretty big
Yeah,
on their radar
They
screen.
love that shit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so they were.
Did you have like a flamboyant singer? Did you have like that guy that like?
We had the it factor. We wherever we went, people wanted to go, and we had a lot of girls that came. And so the girls come, you get the guys, and so the guys came. So and we had good songs. It was just fun. It was a fun vibe, and it was a fun.
Was it like
time.
a Poison kind of feel? Fun?
Yeah, it was before that though, because I left the business before Big
Shark
Hair.
Island. Do you ever hear a band called Shark Island?
No.
There were a lot of party bands in LA back then that would pack people in,
Mhm.
and they were so much fun because the singers would get people up on stage and they would sing songs that was the spirit. That was probably you're talking about the period where before it got commercialized.
Yeah. Well,
Because then it got bastardized.
right. The commercialization was totally different. And the record labels put their hooks into you and owned you differently. It's never been, a good situation there with that. But we had the record label people come in there and we had the management. The management, the guy still owes me a few $1,000s. Oh, Jim, I need you to open up. You guys will be the 3 slot, be $500. Well, you owe me, I'll pay you 1,000, there when you get there. So
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of shit.
oh my gosh. So all these stories you hear, Jakey Lee, I was just listening to a interview on him. He got $100 when he, a week, playing for Ozzy. You just don't get treated
Yeah.
well. They know it.
Do you think there's that plus the fact that there's so many musicians?
Oh, they use
you-
that too.
That you guys all may undercut yourselves?
You want out, we're taking our thing and we're going down the town. We're leaving. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it wasn't long after I left and just said, man, I'm not doing this. And I had an opportunity to join Jafria. Now,
I know those guys.
yeah, Jafria is a
When it
keyboard
comes to
player.
your heart, na, 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 na.
I would have been different. I was in the band, but anyway, he was the keyboard player for Angel, and Angel, they were friends of Van Halen. But anyway, he was going off on his own. The band I was in, we were breaking up. We tried to get Stormer Singer. That was another band called Stormer back then. They were pretty big, and we couldn't land them. So man, things that go on are just by small little amounts. Yeah. Drummer was leaving. And he said, hey, Jafria's looking for a guitar player. I told him about you. He says, you got to show up. He's listened to our things. He's seen your picture. You're exactly what he wants. The only way I could go they were in North Hollywood. The only way I could go out there and it was, I would have to live with this groupie girl that said, you can come live with me and my mom. And, yeah.
Well, so like, were you playing places like the Whiskey? Were you playing like, what were the venues that you were playing?
Not
back
yet.
then?
Right then, we were still playing we played these other halls that were outside in San Gabriel Valley, the Golden West Ballroom in Norwalk. Van Halen played there a lot. We were doing these outside. We crashed and burned before we got to Hollywood.
So you didn't make it to Sunset Strip.
No.
Okay.
And you don't need to. I kind of wasn't looking forward to playing there anyway. Or maybe the Whiskey because it was so high profile. It went back to the
And eat dinner at the
60s.
Rainbow Room and hang out with the rock
I
stars.
think we might have played Troubadour once.
So was
I
it? So you probably would walk down Sunset and you would know a lot of people,
I
right?
would
Like
watch
you had a
bands.
lot of friends who were in the business back then.
Yeah, when we would go see bands, uh, our singer was best friends with Randy Piper, who was the guitar player for Wasp.
Cool.
But they started out as Circus Circus. And that was a great premise.
Weren't a lot of guys recycled like around then?
It was all incestuous. It is unbelievable. But yeah.
Because Sted Howland lives in Fort Myers and he was in Wasp at one point.
Okay.
He's a great drummer and I know him. But yeah, sometimes you hear stories and then it's hard. Like you have to really like, there's somebody should put one of those trees up because like Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, like all these guys, man, were just like all over the place, man.
You know you're out of the band when they don't call you, or you go and the door's locked. You know, it was brutal. It was pretty cruel. It was not a. That's one of the other reasons I left. It's just an ugly scene.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just a real weird deal. But Wasp, they rehearsed in Buena Park, which is probably 3 miles from my house. And so I would go there and watch and see what's going on. They weren't Wasp at the time. They were Circus Circus. And Blackie was in the band and Randy Piper was their guitar player. I think he was their guitar player for the first 2 albums with Wasp. I don't remember. But off to the left was a band called Exciter. And that's where I met George Lynch. Rehearsing in their rehearse. It was a space about twice as big as this room here, you know. And off to the side, they were renting it from Randy Piper to rehearse. So they were a band called Exciter. I guess George started out a band called Boys, and then they went to Exciter. And then from there, Dawkins took them. So I knew him in that brief period there.
Yeah, he was just in town recently.
Yeah, yep.
Because do you watch a lot of these podcasts I do, man?
I watched a few. I watched a
Strip,
couple. All right.
You know, they have some really good guys in that band.
Yeah.
A couple of them just left to move on, but Lost Boys, you know, these are guys that are recreating those sounds.
Oh yeah,
right?
Borgie's playing. He's playing the festivals out in Europe.
Yeah, when Borgie gets back into the U.S., he's going to come back on the show and he's going to share with our listeners all the wonderful things that happened to him over there.
Man, fantastic guy, fantastic player. Man,
what about Kelly? Kelly Schaefer, he was on the show. He's in a band called Atheist, man, and he's all over the world right now because that sound started in Tampa. You know how Tampa had like all that thrash metal started there?
Yeah.
He was like a pioneer, man. And they didn't play for like 8 years at one point, and they get back together. He goes down to South America, and he says he couldn't believe it because the young kids found them on the internet,
All right.
and they're singing back the songs in the audience.
Yeah.
Atheist. How cool is that?
I mean, that's when you know you've made it and you're making an impact, right? When your audience is giving you that feedback. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, even with us playing at these tiki bars, right? When you're playing and you feel it from the people that are dancing, right? There's this energy.
So as we get ready to wrap up, what are some of the things that you love about just playing your guitar, man? What do you love about playing live? Like tell me, like, how do you feel when you're in these cover bands right now are you having fun? Are you is it like cool? Is it like
It's, it's its own thing. It's really tricky. It's, 96 out there today. So if you're playing and you're playing outdoors, your hands sweaty.
Well, summer sucks here.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have the performance things, right? And then you have the issue of, getting that feedback from the audience that your songs are coming over and that people are having fun.
Are you enjoying it?
Me? Yeah, I am. And when I don't, I won't do it anymore. That's the thing. It's like, I want to play out and I want to get that feedback and I want to add value too. You know, I ask myself that I ask myself all the time, am I adding value to Blackthorn Rose? You know, am I, dragging them down or with another guitar player? Or am I, is my heart really into looking at the set list and okay, this song, I really want to.
I mean, you know what? I know what you're saying. We all go through that, but I think that you're, from my perspective, I think you're such a great guitar player that I think it's fun to go see Blackthorn because of you.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Because you are totally an LA guy. Like you sound like an LA guy. There's no doubt. And you know who sounds like an LA guy? You ever see Twinkle and Rock Soul Radio?
Yeah.
Lenny's to me sounds like he could be playing on Sunset Strip in 1987.
Oh,
Like
okay.
he's got that tone that to me at least, you know.
The same thing. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a great band. Whenever I see her soul that she sings with Twinkle.
There's so many good bands here, bro. I mean, we could have a show just about that. Wait till you go see Rock Candy and meet a guy named Kevin Fox.
Oh, I've seen.
Kevin Fox is the future of rock and roll in this area.
We haven't seen him live, but I've seen video clips of him, and yeah, really impressive.
Oh,
man, that guy is an impressive musician.
So Rock
and
Candy is
singer.
kind of like a hiatus right now as one of their female singers going through some health issues.
Oh, and
So
that's
now
too
he's doing
bad.
like the Kevin Fox band.
Oh, okay.
And it's all the same music more or less, but they'll
Mhm.
do like the hard shit like Kansas, Boston,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like the harder stuff that most guys can't do because he can play it and he can sing it.
How's
Lost
the
Boy
how's the audience you responding to that? Do you
very see, here's the thing, man. Port Charlotte's a whole different animal, man. Port Charlotte goes gaga over that kind of music.
Oh, yeah.
Sarasota is different, man. This is an older, more sophisticated money crowd. A lot of people that live here don't necessarily want to hear that stuff. Like that's why we're doing more pop and more country.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
my girl Sarah, my new girl, can sing Whitney Houston, and she can do things that people will stand up and give her a standing ovation.
Well, you got a 22N, right? I mean, they're packed wherever they go. And
22-inch formula is the drummer plays everything nice and fast, more or less at the same straight ahead pace. So therefore, that dance floor doesn't stop.
Mhm.
And their agenda is to get them on the dance floor and keep them there.
Yeah, but
So she'll do a variety of genres that flow. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not big on dynamics. They're just like one speed and one speed, boom, boom, boom. So it's gonna be country, it's gonna be rock, it's gonna be pop. You know, but it's brilliant because they have a loyal following
right.
that like hangs out and just wants to be entertained
And
by
I
them.
think it's a lighter, funner vibe. You know, the band exudes this light, fun vibe.
Well, I think Kristen, who's a friend of mine now,
Mhm.
you know, Kristen was at the party. You saw her.
Yeah, yeah, I
They
did.
came early. They left early.
Yeah, I didn't get to
She's such a
greet
pro
him.
where I think that she's a tall, blonde, statuesque. Um, she's very graceful on stage, right? She commands the stage. She never uses a tablet. She's got a wonderful voice.
Mhm.
So yeah, she sets the tone. I mean, she brings the party.
Right, really
And
works
you
the
know what
crowd
she's
in that
good?
way,
She
yeah.
knows what to say over the microphone.
Mhm.
Like, you know, sometimes you have to like, as a front man, I'm not a front man, but I'm like the leader of the band.
Mhm.
So I have to like almost script out what I'm going to say and when I'm going to say it. You know,
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I hate when guys, all they say is tip the bartenders. They take care of you. Of course you're going to tip the bartenders. You don't need to like, when someone berates me over the microphone and telling me I got to tip they insult me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, everybody want to dance tonight? Let's go. It's Saturday night. So I try to say cool things.
Yeah, right.
And Kristen's like a master of like setting the tone with the audience and having an agreement. She's like, there's an agreement up front that we're going to have fun tonight.
She seems
You know what I'm
very
saying?
natural though. I mean, and fluid, not scripted. You know, really has that connection with
That's
her
what I mean.
audience,
That's
which
what I
is
mean.
fantastic.
That's what I mean.
That's yeah.
So and Twinkle, you know, has that little hippie factor to her. And Twinkle is extremely genuine and she's extremely like what you see is what you get with her.
Mhm.
So people love Twinkle because she's just so Twinkle. I mean, she's her own
Well,
thing.
she lives in the music.
Right.
And I do too. So
her heart
that's
into
the
it.
connection I have with her. I go, man, I'm the guitar version of you.
Right. Right. So we can go on and on about this, but so you know, my philosophy is just keep doing what you're doing, man. Like love what you're doing, get into every song. You know, I love your tone, and I think that you could probably teach people how to like fucking set up their gear and set up their amps because I chase tone, and as a bass player, I'm trying to get better tone. I do like Tony Leclerc's tone. She's with Twinkle also.
Mhm.
So I'm always trying to get that right sound.
Always chase tone. I
Right.
mean, yeah. All of us.
And every
That's
room screws you up because every room's different.
yeah, that's one of the things that I had with George Lynch. 50-watt Marshalls, and we would open them up and look at them, and he was trying to show me how to put diode clippers in, and I didn't understand. It's like, oh, George, you're overwhelming me, and but then we would just get it, dime it. You go, this is how you test a Marshall.
Well, great, Jimmy. So as we close the show, how can people find Blackthorn Rose? Like, how are they going to know when the next show is going to be?
Well, we're blackthornroseband.com, and that's our website. And I think that's the Facebook site too, right? On Facebook, Blackthorn Rose.
So you guys are good about putting all the dates up there in advance?
Yep. And,
Okay.
and we're on Go Tonight. And I've got some original stuff on Spotify and pretty much Amazon,
Okay,
pretty much all
so
that. Jimmy Baxter.
I was going to say, so if people go to Spotify
And they look up
type in,
Jimmy, Jimmy Baxter.
they can hear your original stuff.
Yeah,
That's
and
very cool.
I record stuff all the time. I'm just a creative. Atmospheric guitar, blues guitar, hard rock guitar. I even sing, so have mercy on me when you hear my voice. Don't. The reason I sing real quick is because I make demos, and I have in mind that I'm going to get a professional singer to sing it, right?
Gotcha.
And what happens is I recorded so many of them, that later on I would go back and go, how did this vocal line go? Dang it, I forgot. So now I'll try to put the vocal line on.
It's a placeholder, yeah.
Yeah, there, but I can't sing worth.
That's all right.
So anyway, there is one song on there called "Holy Rollers," which is really interesting. But that I actually sing on. But I want to get somebody to recut it in the studio that can actually sing, and possibly do that again.
Hopefully someone listening to this podcast is going to reach out to you.
Help a boy out.
So how can somebody reach out to you personally?
To me personally,
what's your email address?
Email address is jim@unitedfuelcells.com.
United
Fuel
Cells.
Cells. That's my business.
That's a business.
CELLS. It's CELLS.com. And Jim and Sue Baxter on Facebook.
Okay.
And I'm James Baxter on X.
Are you available if someone needs
Twitter?
If somebody needs a fill-in guitarist or someone wants to jam, are you interested or available?
I can. It's not really my forte, not really what I do. I like doing songs. I'd rather do songs deep than a lot of songs not so deep. I'm not really cut that way. I'd like to get a set list in advance so that I'm comfortable with it. Instead, I don't like winging it.
Sure.
And I don't think it's fair to who I'm filling in
well,
with.
Well, you know what? You mentioned OTC. I mean, OCD. Maybe that's why you're successful and that's why you're good, is because your mindset, you're laser focused, and like you're one of those perfectionist guys that like has to like get it down thoroughly, right?
Yeah, that's my goal, but I don't let it. If it doesn't, I'll go with what I got and go and as confident as I can with how deep I have a song.
Well, Jimmy, thanks for coming in, man. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't too jointed. I tend to shoot around like a ricochet in a discussion.
Man.
So.
It was a great interview. Great. And it's going to be available in a couple days. And people can go to Blackthorn Rose's website, which is Blackthorn Rose FL.
No, I think it's just Blackthorn Rose Band.
BlackthornRoseBand.com. And they can see the schedule. They can find you on Facebook as well.
We're at Hot Sands Saturday.
Hot Sands is a fun place. They got good food there. I recommend to all my listeners, if you haven't had a chance to hear and see Blackthorn Rose, definitely go check him out. Jimmy's a wonderful, wonderful guitar player.
Yeah, the whole band.
I'm gonna tell them to come up to the stage during the break and say hi to you and say that I saw you on the Jacked Up podcast with K-Rock.
Yeah.
Oh, before you go, I got a parting gift. I'm starting to. Everybody gets a free Jacked Up shirt when they come on the show. The funny thing is, I'm so stupid, I forget to like bring them onto the set. So like the last guy that came didn't get one.
Oh, but he doesn't deserve it.
I'm going to make sure you get a shirt.
I don't know that.
The Jacked Up shirt. Now, there's a reason why it's yellow.
Okay.
For many, many years, we did traditional black. And we even did white one year.
All right.
Because everything's black, which is cool. You go to the concert. I went to Metallica. Everyone's wearing black
Musician
shirts.
black.
But I'm thinking, you know what? It's summertime. It's Florida. A lot of my friends are either motorcycle riders or bicyclists.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to protect you and save you, man. So you're not going to get hit by anything.
Play guitar with it and they'll know where to throw their beer. Thank you. That's awesome.
So my man, thanks for coming on the show and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
It's been a privilege.
Thanks, man.